Guys, Jaram here. In the last video, we have learned how we can create project in Laravel, and I have used the 11th version of Laravel. So if I go to the Laravel website, so this is the website, official website of Laravel, where you can see this is the installation process we have followed in the last time. In the last video I have released one. So you can see one creating Laravel project. One was that in one command, like a composer create project Laravel, then example project. One example project will be created. And another way is install the Laravel globally and create project from that installation. So these are the two approaches through which you can create Laravel projects. And whenever you have to, once a project is created, whenever you have to launch this project, you have to go inside the directory of the project. Like here is the example app, and then we have to run the command php artisan serve. So last time I have already, if you see, this was my project which I have created last time, the second project I was giving example. So you can see there are various folders and files created by the framework. This is one of the projects. Second project is the Laravel project I have created using Laravel 11th version framework. So you can see there are lots of folders. So how I can check that my installation was successful? One, if I'm in VS Code, I have to just open the terminal, and here how we can launch the Laravel project. It is php artisan serve, right? So you can see by default Laravel project run on the localhost, and port is 8000. So if I open in my browser, so here is the project. So you can see this is the by default page of the Laravel, and you can see the version is 11 and the PHP which is in my system is 8.3.6. so I'm making sure that Laravel is already installed in my local system. So the intent of this video is understanding different directory structure. There are different directory files and folders created by this framework. So you can see there is a app folder, bootstrap, config, database, public, resources, routes, storage, test, vendor, and these are some files created by Laravel. Editor config, this is basically editor config is related to the VS Code. That is, so let us go inside each folder one by one and let us see what is the purpose of each folder. So the first folder, you see the app folder, right? The first folder, which is the app directory, and if I go to the documentation of Laravel website, and if you see I click here, what it mentioned, the root directory means the root directory is our project directory is the root directory, and inside that the first folder is the app folder, app directory. So basically this app directory contains the core code of our application. Whenever you are creating any project in Laravel, so this is the core code. Core code means you have to, if you are writing your model, controllers, all are inside this folder. So if you see, click on this one, here are the three subfolders. One is the HTTP. So inside this HTTP there is a controllers. So whenever we have to create our controller, we'll create controller here. Then there is a models. Models basically interaction between the database and model we decide. So models will be inside this, and these are some provider, means service provider. Whenever you have to write our own service to be provided while running the Laravel project, we can write the services here. So this is the, you can say, the explanation or information about this app directory. So in high level, now if you see the next folder, which is Bootstrap. So Bootstrap contains like caches. Whenever a project is running, some caching is definitely created to, and Laravel creates some caching files, and which help to optimize the performance of the project. For example, route and service cache files, right? So if you see, there is a one file which is app.php. Basically this is the main file of your project which bootstraps your, means launch your project, Laravel project, app.php. So basically these are the two main thing inside this bootstrap. And if you see, there is also providers, but right now we are not writing any service provider here. Mainly we deal with the app, which is which bootstrap the framework, and here are some caching files are created like for routes or any service files, right? The next folder, which is the config, you see the list of the files are here. These all files are related to the configuration. So what is the meaning of this? So if you see here, the config directory, as the name implies, contains all of your application's configuration files. So we'll see in detail later on. So but in high level, if you see, there is a app configuration is there. So here all application related configurations are set. We do the settings from here, and if you see, it's using env app local or env app time zone or env app URL. So first it try to read the app URL from the env. This is the env file. So you see here is the app URL, right? So the meaning of this is, if this environment file .env had this constant, have some values inside .env, it will read from there, or by default this will read, right? So this is the app. So all configuration related files are also are here. These are related to authentications and some by default settings are there, like which is the default guard of your application is the web, right? We are not using APIs, so default guard is the web. Similarly passwords, and it's using the users table. So you see the guards are defined here. We can define our more guards here. Similarly cache settings are here. So by default where caches should be stored, it's in database. If it's declared or defined it in .env files, it will read from there, or by default it will read the database. So you see here different caching settings, related settings are here. Similarly database related information are here. You see the DB connection by default is SQLite, and if you supplied any database connection here in .env like this, here it's not defined any value but just is commented. So by default SQLite connection will be stabilized with the Laravel, as 11th version of Laravel is coming with the by default SQLite. If you are not creating or not using any other databases like MySQL or SQL Server or any, then by default it will use the SQLite. So these are all related to the configurations, and if you see the file systems are there. So we also putting some settings related to file system disk. If this is defined in environment file, then it will read there, either it will by default to be local. So here you can set many. Here you can see the driver is local, root will be, this is app path, Public files will be where it should read. It should be app inside public, similarly URL, visibility public, and if you are using S3 bucket for our storage of files, so you see it's reading here the env variables. So if you see, if you are storing your files on AWS S3 buckets, here you can see in the settings file this environmental file .env. If you are using AWS S3 to store your files, you can put here the AWS access key ID, AWS secret access key, AWS bucket, and whenever you upload or do any file related activities, it will store on the AWS. So this is the file related settings. Similarly, this is login, and you can see different logs are created here. So it's log related configurations we put here. This is mail related configuration, and we can put here what we are going to use. Are we going to, what are the mailers we want to use? Is it SMTP, SES, or postmarks, or sendmail you are using? So according to our requirement or need, we can use mail related configuration. Like by default, what you want to use the from, like by default is the hello@example.com here and name. And these are some queue, then queue related, because Laravel supports a queue service. Many services are queued, many activities, many events are queued for processing later on. So these are some settings are here, and for the queues, it can use different like database, Beanstalk, SQS, Redis can be used. Different services are there, like SES, recent, Slack, post. So we can do some settings like here. Similarly, session settings can be managed from this file, like session driver is, we are using database for the session. What is the lifetime of session? It is 120 by default, or we can put here in the .env file according to our need. So all sessions related settings we can do from this session.php. So you can see where the session is storing, session table is the sessions, right? Now, so you can see here config is almost clear. The next is the database directory. So if you can see here, there are some folders like factories, migrations, seeders. So factory we define here. Suppose that we want to create lots of fake data, so we can use this file. By default it's user factory, means if whenever you create a project in Laravel, one user model is created. If you see here in the models, user model is created, right? So you can create a factory, all the factories are stored here, and we are also decided which field should be created, what type of data should be put in inside that field for that model. Here are all the database related migrations we create. So before creating any table in the database, we create the migrations in the Laravel. Now seeders are basically used to like here you can see it's using factory, user factory, and it's creating 10 records. One option is that I'm creating 10 records by running this user colon factory 10 create, or I can create a single record by this one. So it will call the factory means this factory, user factory, and it will create one test data for our use. So that one user test user is created with the email ID this. So these are the main usage of factories, migration, seeders. So now this is the database, and if you see the manual also, the database directly contains your data migration, model, factories, and seeders, right? you may also use this directory to hold on SQLite database. You can see by default SQLite database is there, because this editor is not supporting, so it's not opening here. So we need to have some SQLite client so that we can open this database. So now if you move to the public directory, there is a public directory here. So if you see, the as the name suggests, public directory, it contains the first file index.php. So index.php is the entry point for all the requests entering into a Laravel application, and configures auto loading. So if you see here, this is the entry point of your project. Whenever you are typing, my project is, this one is running, right? The localhost, and if the project is live, there will be like some website name, and here report is this one. So first file, this is the first file which will be called the autoload and bootstrap, thereafter bootstrap, right? So if you see the manual, what is say, public directory contains index.php, which is the entry point for all requests entering into your application and configures autoloading. And we can also create our some different folders inside this public to houses our images, JavaScript and CSS files, right? Now after this public, you can see the resources folder. So I can see the resources, CSS is there, JS is there, views is there. So CSS means for my project there can be different views will be here. You can see the welcome.blade.php. So the page you see by default, this is the welcome.blade.php. HTML is coming from here in this, from this file, and whatever the, if this file is using any JavaScript, we can put the JavaScript here, right? If CSS is there, we can put the CSS here, right? So if you see the definition here, resources directory contains your views as well as your raw uncompiled assets such as CSS and JavaScript. So as the name suggests, whatever the CSS is there or JS files are there, those are not compiled ones, right? These are the raw CSS and JavaScript files. Thereafter, you see one important folder which is the route. In the routes folder, there are two files, console.php and web.php. So prior to Laravel 11 version, this folder containing also channel.php and one api.php, but in the Laravel 11 they have removed those two from here, so that whenever you are looking to create those, if your project is dealing with API related development, you can create the api.php here or channel.php if needed, right? But here is not required. Laravel understands that this is the some default two files they are now here they are using. One is the console and another is the web.php. So basically this route decide when you are entering into your index and thereafter deciding which app you are loading. It's deciding here which controller should be called on, which method of which controller should be called on, right? So in this web we write all those routes here. You see here, it's the first route by default is the get, and there is no anything, it's just slash means this one, no request is there, just it's a home page or and it's returning view, welcome view it's returning, right? So route decide which view you can call or which controller you should call, which method of a controller should be called, we can all thing can be decided here, right? So if you go to the manual and if you look into route directory contains all of the route definition for application. By default, two route files are included in Laravel. One is the web.php and console.php. Web.php contains a route that Laravel places in the web middleware group, which provides session state, CRPF, CSRF protection, cookies encryption. If your application does not offer a stateless RESTful API, then all of your route must likely be defined in this. Because I am not using any API, then I should write all my routes inside this web.php. And if you are looking to use console.php, so if you are going to define your some closures based on console commands, you can then write here console.php, and each closure is bound to a command instance, allowing a simple approach to interacting with each commands in input output methods, right? So optionally you may install additional routes for API and broadcast channel and API can be created, like install API and install broadcasting commands, right? API.php contains routes that are intended to be stateless, so requests entering the application through these routes are intended to be authenticated by tokens and will not have access to the session state, right? And if you're looking to create a channels.php file where you may register all of your event broadcasting. If you're dealing with event broadcasting, then in that case we'll use the channels.php. Now the next folder you see is the storage. As the name suggests, storage. So if you see, the manual contains your logs, compiled blade templates, file-based session, file caches, and other files generated by the framework. So this is the storage folder what it contains. So, and this directory is segregated into app, framework, logs directories. So you see here app, framework and logs, right? And app directory may be used to store any file generated by replication. Framework directory is used to store framework generated files and caches, and log directory contains your application log files, right? And if you see storage app public folder is there, and used to store user generated files such as avatar should be public accessible. You should create a symbolic link at public storage which points to this directory. You may also create a link using PHP addition storage link addition command. So this is the way you can link this storage folder, so like you were creating a symlink, right? So this is the use of the storage. Now another important folder is the tests. So as you know that whenever you have to develop an application, and Laravel also support development by test driven development. Once you complete a module or complete a functionality, you can write a test and write unit test or feature wide test, and you can test simultaneously while you are making or creating any module in your project. So if you see here, the test directory contains your automated test, example paste and PHP unit. So we can use the paste or PHP unit, and later on videos you will see how we can use the paste or PHP unit testing for your project. And each test class should be suffixed with the test, and later on we will see in detail and how you can run the test PHP addition test. By running this command, you can run all the test, right? And if you see next one is the vendor. So all dependency whatever the composer dependency needed for your project are all stored in this folder. Vendor, different vendor provided different dependencies, and if you see here the composer, and this composer, you see there are different dependency like faker, paint, cell, mockery, collision, paste, Laravel ignition, paste plugin, tinker framework. All the dependency are stored under this vendor folder, right? And if you're looking to learn in detail about each directory, here is the app directory in detail is provided by Laravel manual. You can go and learn all these things. They have mentioned each and everything in detail, right? So I hope you all got about this folder structure of Laravel, and you already know that this is the environmental variable in .env file. Environmental variable, we should use this file to set all these settings, and this configuration, that app, you see we have already see that lots of configurations are using env, or this configuration file is reading lots of information from this .env file. Rest of the partition is the command utility of the Laravel. Composer is the dependency, what are the dependency needed in this project. Similarly, this is a package, and some package JSON is there where what package is using. So this is the folder and file structure of this Laravel, and we'll see you in the next video with the topic. The next topic we'll going to deal with the like front end and some starter key and deployment type things we'll see, and start with some basics. So guys, see you soon in the next video. Till then, have a great time.